Yeah, looks like Ellen must be right. I ain't getting much spread out of these beer bottles. They're just filling up full of water. But my Rocoto pepper is beginning to bloom. Check it out. You guys ever seen peppers with purple flowers? I'm sure a few of you have. There's a few buds coming here. They're very, very pretty. So, the Rocoto chili. It comes from South America. In Latin, it's Capsicum pubescens, which means felty, furry, hairy leaves. In Mexico, they call it the manzano rojo, which means it's a red apple. There's also manzano amarillo, which is the yellow apple. It's generally called rocoto or locoto in South America. Pepper is distinct in that it has coal black seeds. Now, that's very different. It is a monotypical species. In other words, there is no other pepper in that species group, and it doesn't cross out with annuum or chinense or frutescens, any of the other peppers. Won't hybrid with them. So it's pretty much all to itself. It's unique because it's perennial and will live for years and years. It also has a capsaicin in it of two isomers that will burn twice. That is the chili that burns twice. You eat it, you get a reaction similar to a jalapeno probably. It's sort of similar in flavor. And just when you think it's all over with and you're going to be fine, the second isomer hits, and so you get an afterburner. It's the chili that burns twice. Very interesting pepper. My neighbor down here, Sean, provided me with the seeds. I'd grown it years prior in California, too. I'm familiar with this pepper, but I didn't have it here in Hawaii. By summer's end, I should have a good supply of seeds for sale, if anybody's interested. Well, everybody else out there, including me, are sitting around waiting for the coronavirus to spread. Instead, I've been spending time watching fungus spread. Yeah, it just so happens that 2020 is the year that the Green Garden guy finally broke down and said, that's it, I'm starting to grow mushrooms. It's been pretty successful. We brought in some wine caps yesterday. Here we have the Stroparia rugosa annulata. That's the wine cap mushroom. These are really tasty and really, really easy to grow too, by the way. Real simple. I just pulled these in for today's lunch. They're going in my fried rice. Well, growing mushrooms is a lot different than raising seeds. It's fungus. I mean, it's fungus. It just, you get it going on the right material when it just starts spreading all over the place. Again, I'm a little green at this. I'm still learning myself, doing a lot of experimenting. But what I'm finding is that the mushrooms do not seem to be very limited as far as what they will grow on. For instance, yeah, here's one right here. Now, this is a substrate that is made out of vermiculite and brown rice flour, okay? And there is a chunk of oyster mushroom spawn on the top of it that was grown on wild bird seed. And so that one was just done yesterday, okay? And it hasn't spread yet. Right here is a jar full of oyster mushroom that's growing actually on wild bird seed and sawdust inside the jar. And this was spawned about 2 weeks ago. I took a chunk and just dropped it inside the jar. Let's see here. Yeah, now right here, this one is lion's mane. And lion's mane is growing on, again, this is sawdust with brown rice flour and vermiculite mixed together. Over here, we have some wine cap spawn growing in a jar that's filled with wild bird seed. Okay, and so that's the plain old stuff you put out at your bird feeders. And over here, again, we have the same, but we're growing on vermiculite and brown rice flour. Now, something about this It's going to depend. Now, I'm holding up canning jars, and so this is sort of where the process may start. It could start here. These are regular hospital syringes, and you can get syringes that have sterile water with mushroom spores in them. You can buy them on the internet, okay? Or you can make your own if you take fungi that you have here on the island and create spore prints. You can make a sterile spore print, and then you can get it in here, okay, to use this tool to inoculate. Or here, for instance, this is a petri dish filled with agar that has spores that were injected on the agar of lion's mane mushrooms. And so they're growing inside the petri dish. So you get a few varieties, different ways you can do all of this. So let's take, for instance, there was the petri dish with the lion's mane fungus. This is also a jar filled with substrate that is on lion's mane fungus, and it was inoculated using the petri dish. All we did was we took a canning jar, we filled it with a combination of brown rice flour and vermiculite. The jar was then put into a pressure cooker. We put it on our pressure canner, and with jars like this, 1 hour at 15 pounds is fine. Now, as you start to get to bigger containers, like some of these 5-pounders here, then you're going to need to go as much as 2.5 hours to make sure they're sterilized in the pressure cooker. But you put the stuff in here, you screw the jar shut, you throw it in the canner, and you cook it for an hour. The jar has, right here, a hole, 1/4-inch hole drilled through the top of the lid, and I have a little patch of a micropore tape that's over it. That allows the gas that the mushroom makes to leave the jar, but it doesn't allow things out here to go inside the jar. So it's kind of a one-way valve. If you don't have a way to get the gas out of the jar, your jars will almost explode. They will definitely pressurize, and then the mushrooms will die in their own exhalations in the jar. So you need a way to get the gas out. That's really important. Okay, and so in the case of spores grown on agar, when we're trying to inoculate them here, I took this dish and I cut the inside of it into slices like a pie with a sterilized knife. Then I picked them up, I cleaned the jar with alcohol, my hands with alcohol, etc., etc., sterile, 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 and then I just opened the jar and quickly with the knife picked up a piece of agar, dropped it in, shut it. And that was that. And I managed to get the inoculation without carrying in any mold or contamination. So once it went from the petri dish to this jar, then the contents of the jar are taken and they're put into a grow bag like this one right here. Now these grow bags are for sale commercially. They're used for production of fungi. They have also these micropore patches built in on the bags, okay? And you buy them that way. You can get them in all kinds of different sizes. And again, in here I put sawdust with brown rice flour and vermiculite mixed together with water. There's water in there too. And after it was put inside the bag, and the bag was cooked in the pressure canner for 2.5 hours, then I took the contents of a jar like this, took a sterile spoon, reached in, knocked it out, threw it inside here, and let it spread. Okay, so it's getting bigger and bigger as time goes on, and my fungi are just increasing in their size. Over here, I have a bag of, again, the same fungus. This is the lion's mane mushroom. This one is half spread. The spawn is running. It's going through, but it's only halfway through. And back here, I have big bags I cooked the other day. These are 5-pounders. Again, it's brown rice flour, vermiculite, and sawdust in these bags for this particular mushroom. Each mushroom seems to have something special that it likes to grow on, but I'm finding that most mushrooms will grow on any kind of a grain flower. They will also grow on wood. A lot of them will grow on wood. The oyster grows on wood. The shiitake will grow on wood. The lion's mane will grow on wood. So many of them will actually grow on wood. You have other mushrooms out there that people like to grow that are more compost and manure lovers. So like the regular creminis or the agaricus bispores you get in the store, the white meadow mushrooms. Those like manure substrates, compost substrates. Same thing if you're into growing your own suicide. That those are, again, mushrooms that require something a lot stronger than wood. Anywho, what I'm about to do here today, well, is I would like to demonstrate not only transferring, but also I would like to talk about inoculating jars with liquid spores. Okay, when you're not using the petri dish like I did. Here you'll see a jar that I have made a lid that has two different ports in it. This port right here is a vent for air, but that port right there is a self-sealable injectable neoprene port, so I can take a hypodermic syringe loaded with spores and water, push it into this port, and then shoot it inside the jar. That is actually how this was done. This is on wild bird seed, and the spores were put in through that port. You can make all the stuff yourself. You know, these are plastic reusable lids available from Ball. I'm using silicone seals underneath them that are reusable and can be cooked. All the stuff here is available on the market. You can use 3M's micropore tape, even like they use in a hospital for this. This was a special made patch that I got from a mycology company. They're kind of expensive, but they hold up real well. All right. And so once you build this equipment, you can use it over and over and over again. This will grow many crops of mushrooms. Okay, so first thing first, I have already disinfected my counter. Okay, so the counter has been cleaned with alcohol. I have gone over my hands and things one time here, but I am going to go ahead and I'm going to do this again. So now, for those of you who stocked up on isopropyl alcohol and toilet paper, so you have enough of it for the next century, you might consider going in and growing mushrooms, because both of these come in quite handy. Yeah, they do. So, there's what to do with all that toilet paper you got laying around and alcohol. Alright, so there, my hands have been cleaned, and I'm going to take this bag as the one that I'm going to divide here. And the first thing I'm going to do is get this bag prepared by taking off the paper clips. Okay. All right, so I could use just a small patch of this if I wanted to. I mean, I could take a quarter-sized chunk of this mycelium and put it into this bag, and it will run. But I'm going to do things quicker than that, and so I'm going to take what I got in this bag, and without opening the bag, I'm pretty much here going to break it in two. And make two pieces out of it. There it goes. All right. Now, my hands have been cleaned. There we go. complete. All right, there we go. The transfer has been made. I have taken what was about 2 pounds of spawn, and I have split it into 2 chunks, and I moved it into these 5-pound bags. Now, in these bags, I plan to actually fruit this mushroom. This is going to be the final step right here. And so once this all runs all the way through my substrate in the bags, then I'm going to take an arrow point used for deer hunting, and I'm going to poke it. It's one of them 4 crossblade jobs. I'm going to poke it in here and make little cross-shaped cuts inside the edges of the bag. So then the mushrooms will then begin to fruit through those holes on the outsides of the bag. So we can literally cut them off on the sides. You can do that same thing with oyster mushrooms too. It will work out just fine. You can grow them right there in that bag. Alrighty, folks, so the virus might be spreading, but my fungus is spreading even faster, and I'm happy about this spread. And so there'll be more as time goes on. Green Garden Guy is going to talk about growing mushrooms in your house, and as we start to get harvests coming on here, I'm going to be showing you what we got. And so never fear, the process is ongoing, and I'm learning this as much as you are, and we'll let you know what actually works out really well and what doesn't work out so well as time goes on. So, aloha, y'all stay safe, be well, don't let anything but mushrooms spread. Have a good one.